is Chantel with Andrewschuk Academy, and I'm here discussing Thinking Tree journals, which we have been blessed to have recently discovered the joy of fun schooling through the genius of Sarah Janice Brown. And so we're pretty excited about it. We're fairly new to it, but we are fully immersing ourselves in this. Ignore the cats. Sorry about that. So I, however, have some unique learners, and I wanted to address that as something you will discover in the homeschooling world is there are thousands of us, and anything you think you're struggling with alone, you're not. So reach out, and there will be somebody out there who puts their hand up and says, oh, me too. I thought I was the only one. So I do want to bring this up. My oldest daughter, Sheridan, is 12 years old. She is academically gifted. She does not struggle with schoolwork at all. In fact, her biggest gripe is that things are too simplistic. So she is not someone that enjoys doing a lot of writing herself, though she is a very avid reader, and she'll devour a novel a day. So I got her this journal in the hopes that it would inspire her to put her own pen to paper and get some of her ideas and thoughts going and get the creative juices flowing. And as I said in a previous video, it has done that. She is in this, and she is writing her own stuff. I did not grade her poems or critique them in any way, shape, or form, so that she can feel free to just put her thoughts on paper. But I know that if this was a book that I was to be including as a regular part of her schooling, that she would start complaining that it is repetitive and that, you know, it's too simple, just writing poems. So I was going through with that thought in mind and thinking about how you could easily adapt it to a more advanced learning style. So that's what I'm sharing with you here today. So as you can see, it's a color, and then write. And there's some really cool pictures here that inspire different thoughts. And some of them, I noticed, would be so easy to incorporate into a unit study. For example, you could look at art and like the abstractness of this figure or the feelings that this image evokes, and you could certainly tie that in. There's also things like fishes. This here is like foliage and bugs, so there's entomology that you could dip into there, that you could certainly branch off of. Home ec. Fashion. This one here would be a great one for science. Perhaps you could have them look up and identify some of the leaves in this picture, either prior or after coloring. And if you wanted, then you can go into medicinal uses or whether or not they're edible, where they're native to, etc., etc. So those are the kind of things that would get her kind of fired up. She likes to feel that she's delving deep and that she's really engaging all of her brain. Art studies as well. I was thinking even simple things like this, having, well, this would be science as well, discussing the changes of a tree through the seasons. You could maybe have her take this tree that kind of looks like it's either spring, yeah, probably spring, and then she could color it in, filling it out with like a summer foliage. Is it a fruit-bearing tree? She could add those. You could bring in, okay, if it's, for example, an apple tree, is there a favorite apple recipe? Then she could try that out. That would draw in your home economics. So things like that. Here you can base off sewing projects, designing her own clothing. Is there a dress here that she would want to make but with her own style? Or would she like to just simply draw out a design that she would prefer to wear? So these are simple ways we can do that. And then I noticed at the end of the book, you'll see that it is switched into an open design. It's more of a border, a coloring border, so that now the child has the opportunity to fill in the middle. And the easiest way, of course, would be with a drawing. But I was thinking it wouldn't have to be a drawing. You could, for example, switch this into a little deeper language arts base and have them put copywork perhaps of a couple sentences of a favorite poem or a favorite quote from a book. And then over here, you could do an opinion-based essay where they discuss why this speaks to them or why they chose it, what they think the author is trying to relay in these words. So those would be certainly more advanced concepts that could be used here. And then back here, I noticed that there's the little boxes, and a simple one would be to, for example, write a story, and then they could draw pictures, kind of like a little mini comic strip summing up the events that are taking place in the story. But then I thought another one that might be really fun would be, for example, if you were Christian, you could discuss, a concept like, I feel that God is very just and he truly values fairness. And this is important to me because, and then here you could put scriptures that back your statement here of God being just. Another way that this could be used with these not being drawings would be if they were to write a poem or a story and then find other poems or stories that share the same sentiment as what they talked about here. So, for example, Thistle, stop. Sorry, my little puppy. It's being a brat over there. For example, maybe they find or they decide to share a poem about loneliness or melancholy. And then maybe here they want to talk about an Emily Dickinson poem that shares the same sentiment. Maybe a quote by Shakespeare, and maybe something by Edgar Allan Poe. And on and on and on. You could also do a theme. You could ask for example, my daughter loves Edgar Allan Poe. She has read, I believe, all of his works. And he was known as the original master of terror and horror, which she finds hilarious because by today's standards, I mean, his stuff is certainly nowhere near noteworthy in measures of gruesome. But you could say, for example, literature that evokes fear. And then she could list favorite quotes from Poe or other authors that have the same sort of thing. So I thought this would be fun ways to make this, again, a little deeper and more intensive language arts-wise for her. Another idea would be to, for example, in Shakespeare, Thistle, stop, sorry. Sheridan has just started dipping her toes into Shakespeare with Romeo and Juliet, and I did extensive study in Shakespeare in university. I know that one of the biggest things people struggle with is Shakespeare's language. He actually invented words that later became part of English language simply because of his use of them. And by his context, you could derive the meaning. So this would also be a fun one if she was to select words that are used in Shakespeare and then write 6 words down and then go from the context of it. And she could talk about here why she decided that the definitions were as she decided based on the context. Like, for example, was it a military type story, like Macbeth? Or was it more of a romance story such as, Romeo and Juliet? And so then she could explain why she felt these words would be defined the way that she defined them. And she could just put the word and then a brief, 1-sentence description or definition, of what she feels that the word means. And certainly words she doesn't understand, she could just look up and find as well. So these are some ideas. There's several pages for things like that. And I think that those would be some fun ideas that she would really enjoy doing a little deeper if these were to be more of an assignment. And also on pages like this, I know she likes to draw, but there are lots of children who don't. So perhaps you wanted to have them share a piece of writing that applies to their own life experience. So here they could write out a descriptive paragraph, a poem, whatever, on something that means something to them. And then on this page, really, at Dollar Tree, you can get the little stick-on photo corners. And you could arm them with a camera and send them out into the yard to do some photos. Or give them magazines and they can cut things out and then glue them on and make a collage of things that have meaning for them or that relate to an experience. Maybe your son wants to write about the first time he went skiing with his uncle. And maybe here he wants to put a photo of the sun shining on beautiful snow, a pair of skis, whichever. And certainly it would be very easy to collage those things out of a magazine. You could actually even do that on these pages too. So hopefully these gave you some ideas to make this a little bit more advanced for those of you that need, and for those learners who just thrive on academic challenge. So I do feel that this is a journal definitely worth investing in, and being as it is so open-ended, it could be as simple as grade 3, and it could go all the way right through to grade 12. So look at some Thinking Tree journals and make them your own. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future videos, drop them in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Meantime, hit that subscribe button and I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you.